Hey there, you are listening to Today in Gaming Yesterday with me, your host, Emma Pearl. Today we are deep diving into May 2000, all the latest releases and reviews, and we're doing a deep dive into the Mary, Kate, and Ashely video games on a variety of platforms, so stay tuned.
Let me take you back again. Oh, that.
Hello. In case you missed it, this is Today in Gaming Yesterday. I am your host, Emma Pearl. I am so excited. There is so much good stuff in the issues that I looked through this week for May 2000. Just like so much good stuff happening. I am so excited to dig into this, so I want to jump in so quickly. Once again, you're listening to Today in Gaming Yesterday. If you haven't already, please go ahead and rate, review, subscribe, all those good things to help this podcast make its way to more people. That would be rad. I am so excited about all the fun stuff we've gotten into so far. We are very close to halfway through the year 2000, which is absolutely bonkers. So please feel free to subscribe on YouTube if you'd like as well. We are inching ever closer to the 100 subscriber custom URL moment. So please and thanks in advance. I want to give some quick thank yous to some sources I used today: Game FAQs, TCRF.net, Bloomberg News, RetroMags.com, RetroCDN.net, Wikipedia, and CBR.com. So much to dig into today. I am so excited. Our order of operations, as per usual, we're going to dig into the charts, and then we're going to deep dive into GamePro from May 2000, as well as Nintendo Power from May 2000. And then our deep dive today is all about Mary, Kate, and Ashely video games. There is actually so much there that I'm so excited to dig into with you, so I hope that you are stoked. So let us dig into the top 10 best-selling games from May 2000. Starting at number 10, working our way to the number 1 spot. Coming in at the 10th spot, Spec Ops for PlayStation. Number 9, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater on the N64. Number 8, Star Wars Episode 1 Jedi Power Battles on the PlayStation. Coming in at number 7, we have Siphon Filter 2 on the PlayStation. Number 6, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater on the PlayStation. Number 5, the Jam Pack Summer 2000 disc on the PlayStation. Number 4, Excitebike 64 on the Nintendo 64. Coming in at number 3, we have WWF SmackDown on the PlayStation. Number 2 spot, we have Pokemon Stadium on the N64, and the number 1 best-selling game from May 2000 is Perfect Dark on the N64. Worth the wait, I'm assuming. Let's go into these hot rentals from May 2000 as per the folks at Blockbuster. Coming in at number 10, we have Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six. This is the N64 list, by the way. Number 9, we have Donkey Kong 64. Number 8, ECW Hardcore Revolution. Coming in at number 7, we have Army Men, Sarge's Heroes. Number 6, All-Star Baseball 2000. Number 5, Disney's Tarzan. Number 4, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. Glad that N64 port obviously is working. Coming in at number 3, we have WWF WrestleMania 2000. Number 2 spot for hot rentals of May 2000 for the N64 goes to Mario Party 2. And coming in at the number 1 hot rental for the N64 in May 2000, Pokemon Stadium. Still making it happen. Stoked. Let's dig into the hot rentals for PlayStation. Coming in at number 10, we have the Dukes of Hazzard Racing from Home. Number 9, Gran Turismo 2. Number 8, Army Men, Sarge's Heroes. Number 7, MLB 2001. Number 6, Triple Play 2001. Number 5, Need for Speed, Porsche Unleashed. Number 4, Army Men, World War. Coming in at number 3, we have Star Wars Episode 1 Jedi Power Battles. Number 2, we have WWF SmackDown. And the number 1 hot rental of May 2000 for the PlayStation is Siphon Filter 2. Let's go. So you may be wondering, what is Jam Pack Summer 2000? It was number 5 on our list of the top 10 best-selling games of May 2000, so I looked into it. It is a demo disc for the PlayStation. Demos on there included The Legend of Dragoon, Hot Shots Golf 2, Medieval 2, Grind Session, Speed Punks, a demo of Siphon Filter 2, Tomba 2, The Evil Swine Return, Spider-Man, NASCAR Rumble, and Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2. And there are codes, news, all kinds of things on there as well. I actually found a review from August 28th, 2001, which is, the summer after this came out. I found this review on GameFAQs, and here are some highlights from the review. Quote, some of the games include Hot Shots 2, NASCAR Rumble, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, and Spider-Man. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 includes a basic park builder, 1 level, and 2 skaters, allowing for countless hours of skating enjoyment. The golf game is tough, but if an impatient 16-year-old like me can master it, then surely a Pokemon freak such as yourself can do it. I loved this review. I could have read the whole thing to you, and you would have been just as entertained as I was reading it. Excellent stuff. I tried to see if I could find them anywhere else on the internet. Failed. This week there were a lot of things that I just dove into because there was so much interesting stuff in all of this. I loved it. So, GamePro, let's dig in. The cover of this month's GamePro from May 2000 is Resident Evil Code Veronica. And that's huge to me that the Dreamcast is getting a cover game on GamePro. I think that's super sick. I'm really excited for them. I don't think it's going to pay off in the long run, knowing what I know now, but I'm still very excited. The letter from the editor is all about zombies, Resident Evil Code Veronica. I'm a total noob. I didn't realize that, zombies are they like the Resident Evil thing? I still have not started playing my Resident Evil remake for GameCube. If you're wondering, I have not started yet. But, they bring up really interesting points in the letter from the editor here about zombies in video games and kind of the impact that that's had, the impact that it still continues to have. We see zombies everywhere. It's still just such an interesting concept that they can do very well in games. There's lots of really cool zombie games featured in this episode. I don't dig into this issue, but yeah, there's a lot of really good stuff there. And there's a really good quote that kind of sums up their thoughts on zombies and why it's so prevalent in video games and why we continue to see it. Quote, Mario is only making guess shots. Sonic's on the run. Crash took up kart racing. Laura's chasing relics. Big names in games come and go, but shambling and slobbering along, zombies remain on the march. And that's still so true. We see it everywhere, and I love it. The letters to the editor are all very weird this month. Quote, the opening cinema in Resident Evil 3 Nemesis shows soldiers rappelling down from a helicopter. Why don't they just stay in the helicopter and shoot the zombies from above? A lot of logic there. GamePro says, because that would be like shooting fish in a barrel. Valid. This one was interesting. Software piracy is a major problem, but it seems to be getting worse. On the internet, every time I do a search for a game, it turns up at least one piracy page. What's being done about this? GamePro says, hey, if you want to solve for this, don't buy pirated games and don't let people copy your games. And this made me wonder, maybe I was just very sheltered and didn't do anything like that, copying games or playing copied games for the most part. What lockouts really existed to prevent people from playing, copying pirated games that were just copied? Is it more difficult to copy a game now than it was in the era of a PS1, for example? I don't know. If you know, please inform me. I love to learn. GamePro reader Randy is extremely mad that snowboarding games have been lumped together in the Reader's Choice Awards. He's very mad about this. His quote, comparing other snowboarding games to, quote, extreme games in such a cliched category is just too much. Get your facts straight and stereotype something else. Randy, I love your passion. That's what I'll say. Somebody from Tucson wrote in and suggested 3 different variations on one gaming concept where essentially you shoot Pokemon. Can't believe that didn't take off. There's also an advertisement in here that when I see a good ad, I love it. There's an ad for half.com, which I was like, a website, sign me up. I learned that it's basically like eBay, except that there's no bidding. It's just fixed prices. So people could also pre-order something being like, hey, I want to buy this. In the ad that features a Snoop Dogg CD, I want to buy this Snoop Dogg CD, I'll pay $15 for it. And then sellers could see those listings and then sell directly to that buyer instead of listing their own object, which is kind of cool. It turns out eBay bought them in June 2000, very shortly after this came out, and they actually kept the concept of half.com going until 2017, and then they just folded the entire thing into eBay, which, what can you do? I just love the .com era. I love this moment of this wild capitalism creativity of what can we put on the internet? What is this new selling, buying concept? What can we offer via the internet to reach more people? and possibly a cheaper way to go about business, because half.com wasn't storing anything. They were literally just listing things. So it's kind of wild. I would love to read a really good book about the dot-com bubble and the burst and who made it out to the other side and why. If you ever have a recommendation on that, please send it to me. I love books about that kind of stuff. The buyer's beware section this month in GamePro is also super duper interesting, because I didn't realize this, but apparently Gran Turismo 2 is super duper buggy for the first version of the game that was shipped out. It would fully, like, there's a lot of different glitches that could happen, but one of them is it would just fully wipe all of the cars that people had acquired. And so they reached out to Sony for comment here. Sony said, quote, "There were a few bugs in the early versions of Gran Turismo 2. You unfortunately have the worst of them." This person who wrote in about all of their cars disappearing. Yeah, I'd say that's pretty bad. Sony goes on to say, "We'll be more than happy to replace your disc with a newer version of GT2 that doesn't have any of the glitches. We apologize for any inconvenience this may have caused." GamePro rips in. They're like, "It would seem that Sony opted to release a game plagued with bugs and missing a gameplay mode just to meet holiday demand." Like, there's like a drag racing mode that was supposed to be in the game that is not there. They just left it out of the final version because they were rushing to get it released. So there are in case you listener are wondering, do I own bugged Gran Turismo 2? Here's a way to tell. If your stats read 98.2% complete, when in fact you know you finished the entire game, your game is bugged. If you've acquired cars and they mysteriously disappear from your garage, your game is bugged. And if the car's horsepower changes after you've bought it and put it in your garage without having previously upgraded it, your game is bugged. I wondered about this. I'm like, did they just rush through QA? What happened? And I actually read on Wikipedia, the people who developed the original Gran Turismo were like legitimately shocked that it was so popular and it did so well. So in a rush to get another game out and publish it and ride that high, they just rushed it, which really sucks that, you know, a game that sold very well was really buggy for a while. Kind of sucks. They also have a really interesting thing here about import games on an American Dreamcast, which includes, you know, you'd have to install a mod chip for that at this day and age. So GamePro gives a lot of information about that, which I was surprised. One of them, though, it says that this install of 26 wires that cost $80 to $90 takes 3 days to install on your Dreamcast. How? I'm really excited about this because this made me just really dig in. There is a news bit in the Pro News, very, very small blurb that, of course, I turned into a gigantic thing I dug into. Half-Life being released on the Dreamcast. So if you've never heard of Half-Life, it's this really fun game. I played it on PC. I played it for the first time in December 2020, and I love it. It's so good. They were going to release it on the Dreamcast, and this talks about it. Half-Life is on track for summer for the Dreamcast. Here's the actual scoop. This game was canceled on the Dreamcast shortly before release in 2001, but not before a Prima strategy guide had shipped out to retailers. There is a full strategy guide for Half-Life on the Dreamcast that exists for a game that was never actually released. It had an unused map for a deathmatch level for multiplayer. It looked sick. There's like an unused cinematic intro that kind of ties into the train from the very beginning of Half-Life, you know, when you're driving in. Super interesting. And then this kind of led to me going down a very, very intense and very enjoyable rabbit hole about Half-Life that I loved. And I am so excited that I learned all of this about it, TBH. I probably need to pick up Half-Life 1 port on the PS2 that has a 2-player co-op campaign where you play as female scientists. I also need to make a friend, so I really have a lot to do this weekend, I guess. The Prima strategy guide actually for Dreamcast is actually available on archive.org, and I love it. It was wonderful. The Dreamcast port is also, I think I knew this, but being able to put all the pieces together is super helpful. The port is actually where Half-Life Blue Shift originated from, which was released on PC on its own later on. If you don't know what that is, there's different versions of Half-Life that have been released, and one of them is Blue Shift, which is you don't play from the perspective of the main character in the main game, Gordon Freeman. You actually play from the perspective of Barney, who is the security guard. I did enjoy playing that. I did play that on stream, but the very end crashed, so I don't know how it actually ends, but I did beat the game. And also, I thought this was cool. the cheat code area isn't like a alphanumeric whatever situation for cheats. It's 3 columns of words that you make a phrase that unlocks specific cheats, things like God mode, whatever. Thought that was cool. And then also the graphics are like, you know, Dreamcast graphics are decent, but also G-Man's head is just like long head. I will include an image in the episode guide on Twitter just because I was like, nice, look at him go. So yeah, I was very distracted by that on this giant page that talks about the PlayStation Festival 2000, which took place in Japan and had 20 different PS2 games on display, I believe. They also demonstrated the DVD abilities of the PlayStation 2 by showing the very important movie, The Matrix, on DVD. It was there. You could see the PlayStation 2 playing that film. Excellent. I also never realized this, but the DVD playing capabilities on the PS2 actually came from a driver file that is on the memory card that you would use with it. You can reinstall it if it actually gets deleted, but if you don't have that one little driver that's on a memory card that you plug in, your PS2 is like, I don't know what this disc is and I don't know how to play it. Get hacked, which I thought was fun. I also learned too, one of the big things with PS2 and why I play PS2 a lot still is that it's backwards compatible with PS1 games. But at the time, they actually had identified some very early PS1 titles that were not actually able to be played on the PS2. At the time of this writing, 15 Japanese titles were identified as unable to be played. And then, they were still trying to figure out how many American titles were affected. And I did not Google this. I wrote in my notes, I didn't actually Google this. I'm going to wait and see. So we'll see what happens. In this one, they also announce probably my favorite game, one of my top games, it's hard to say, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2. They say, it's available on more platforms than Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1, PlayStation, N64, the Dreamcast, the PC, and the Game Boy Color. And they also say here, hey, probably going to be a PlayStation 2 version 2, which, wrong, whatevs. When we talked about Gran Turismo 2 with very quick development, I found this very interesting about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. According to Wikipedia, they started development of this game, the second Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, in April 2000. They had a non-playable demo ready showing what was happening at E3 in 2000, which took place May 11th through 13th. And then the jam-packed Summer 2K demo disc that was one of the top-selling games of this month had a playable demo. That's fast, dog. It's fast, and it was good. So maybe they should write a letter to the people behind Gran Turismo 2 and tell them what's good. Another thing that's advertised in here that I dove into so deeply is called the Song Boy for the Game Boy Color. So it's about the size, and it has, similar peripheral functionality in this sense as a Game Boy camera. Holds 32 megs, which is like almost a CD. And it connects via USB to your computer, and then you put MP3s on this device, and you plug that into your Game Boy Color, and then you can play MP3s on your Game Boy Color. I did an eBay check because I do want this very badly. It doesn't exist. Quote, Song Boy, end quote, doesn't exist on eBay. Doesn't exist anywhere. And that is because Nintendo sued them in June. Bloomberg reported on it. And then at that moment, I was kind of digging through the Song Boy website on archive.org, as I am often found doing. They rebranded to Song Pro. And I did find one Song Pro on eBay. I found one Song Pro ever. I haven't, from sold items, there was nothing there. There's one on there right now. It is $130. I really want it. I'm not going to buy it. I'm dying for it, but I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to do it. I swear I'm not going to do it. But I might. But I won't. But I might. Let us dig into the previews and reviews of this episode, this issue of GamePro. There's a review in here that I thought was funny. There is a review in here for a literal live action ride at Universal Studios, and that ride is Men in Black Alien Attack. I love things that rhyme. I looked into this, and it's, it's one of those like fun, like you ride a ride, but you're also shooting stuff. And I think I've actually played this now that I'm looking at this and thinking about the fact that this is in Florida and I used to live in Florida in this day and age. It looks fun. And I thought it was funny too. I look into it. This game is still open. This attraction is still a thing. This opened in April 2000, and this attraction is still running. Very, very proud and happy for them. They also do a little bit of a review on Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 for the Dreamcast, which, like, the graphics look good. You know, the Dreamcast was on par graphic-wise with the PS2, right? So, like, this for me kind of brought on this notion of, like, is this one of the reasons that the Dreamcast failed? Is because it is holding on to a older generation of games, though it is a newer generation console. That came up to me in the next game that stood out to me as well, called San Francisco Rush 2049, which I thought this concept was wild. Quote, 50 years in the future, amidst a new gold rush, San Francisco is riddled with tunnels and mining shafts. So you like, it's based on like a previous iterations are, you know, in arcades. And so you're driving and there's tunnels because the gold rush. But again, this came out on N64 and the Dreamcast, and like they're very different. The N64 and the Dreamcast are so different graphically and in terms of so much. So, you know, is that part of the reason that Dreamcast got shoved to the side? Is because it just like was a little bit too new for the generation it was a part of, which puts it on par with, in my mind, the PS2, the Xbox, the Dolphin. It came out in 99 though, so very interesting. They have a review for Street Skater 2, published by EA. It gets decent reviews. It's a skateboarding game. Dinged for repetitive announcers, weird camera movement. GamePro straight up tells you to buy Tony Hawk Pro Skater if you're only going to buy one skating game this year. Which, ouch. But, you know, I can appreciate GamePro's honesty. They have a really good full-page review of Pokemon Stadium, as they should. One of the top-selling games, an excellent game. And they say, quote, this one is well worth the investment. Absolutely. You are correct. Good take. Thank you, GamePro. Keep it up. We talked a little bit about this in the previous episode about Choo Choo Rocket, which is like this internet functionality game for the Dreamcast. And it kind of sounds like GamePro wasn't able to actually review the online functionality piece of it. And so, like, they're like, oh yeah, you played with 3 other fake characters that were all computer generated. Like, okay. If they couldn't really try out the internet features, I wonder, you know, should the review have come out at this moment? I should probably look into actually if people were able to play this. There is also an ad in here that I loved because I think I had a pamphlet of this that I got in middle school. And that pamphlet is 77 ways to say no to weed and still be cool. Some of my favorites include no, grass is for mowing. No, I'm already weird enough. No, and get a life while you're at it. No, someone might see us. And my number one favorite was no, thanks. I might get kicked off the math team. That is from an Office of National Drug Control Policy, Partnership for a Drug-Free America, freevibe.com. Don't go to that website. I don't know where it will take you now in the year 2022. Thank you so much. They have a giant pro strategy guide for Siphon Filter 2, which I wrote in my notes. Good for her. That's excellent. I think that's great because, you know, it's a well-selling game. Rental's hot. Let's go. They have an ad in here for the Neo Geo Pocket Color, which I began doing my deep dive this week on handhelds, and there's just too much there. I'm going to have to turn that into like a special episode. There's too much there. But yeah, interesting that they have an ad for the Neo Geo Pocket Color. Spoiler alert, rough year. So that is about everything I took away from GamePro for this month. So excited to dig into Nintendo Power with you and then dig into this week's deep dive on Mary, Kate, and Ashely video games. Let's go ahead and take a quick break. As a reminder, you are listening to Today in Gaming Yesterday with me, your host, Emma Pearl. So excited to dig into the rest of May 2000 with you. Keep it locked. I will see you in just a moment. Welcome back to Today in Gaming Yesterday with me, your host, Emma Pearl. Let's dig into Nintendo Power from May 2000. Exciting stuff, exciting month. There is just so much good stuff happening this month. I am so excited to dig into all of it with you. There's so much happening. The cover is Excitebike 64. I keep saying Excitebike. I'm so sorry in advance. Looks exciting, if you will. What also stood out to me is that there is an advertisement in here for thetruth.com, which, like, I had not thought about The Truth, and it's basically this larger scale, like, ad campaign against smoking. I think it worked. I watched a lot of those ads on MTV in the day. I think it did work on me to make me not want to smoke cigarettes, because all the ads, it would be like, they're addicting and people die from smoking cigarettes. Like, don't do it. Like, this ad says every 8 seconds, Big Tobacco loses another customer. They die. That worked on me. So they did a very good job with that. Wonder if they ever saw the vape era coming. The player's polls from this month is absolutely goofy because they had previously asked people to write in questions to specifically various video game characters. And so this features responses from video game characters. These are some of my favorites, just a couple. Quote, I would ask Mario why he never gets any gray hairs in his mustache. I mean, he's getting pretty old, yet now he can still do backflips and somersaults. Mario says, I'm going to give you my best Mario voice. I hope you're excited. Mario says, quote, Mario's secret is a proper stretching, my friend, and the mushroom smoothies for the healthy bones and nicer hair. I don't think that was very good. The next one I wanted to call out was, quote, I'd like to ask Navi, the fairy from Ocarina of Time, a question. Why don't you ever shut up? You are a bossy loudmouth. And Navi says, hey, look. Hey, listen, look. And that's it. Like, Nintendo Power always gets me with the silly because they could be very silly. The Excitebike 64 feature starts off hot. Do you remember Excitebike for the Nintendo Entertainment System? Chances are some readers out there are too young to remember the sweet wine of miniature engines as they buzzed through the little 8-bit tracks that NES owners grew so fond of. It's like, hey kid, are you old? Probably not. Like, thank you so much. I was prepared to not be impressed by this game, but it does look fun. There's a ton of different courses. You can make custom laps, and you need to unlock things, which I like. You have to unlock all of the pro season from doing novice and amateur first, which is great. And I looked up on Wikipedia after the fact, generally favorable reviews. Good for them. Good for Excitebike 64. It's also a giant feature on a Hercules game, which I never saw coming. I should have looked up how this one actually did. Was not expecting that. They do another giant deep dive into Perfect Dark. It's exciting that this game, did so well. And I still am like rated M for mature. Oh my gosh. Really, really good walkthroughs here. Simulants? I have a lot to learn about Perfect Dark, obviously. Thank God I have Nintendo Power as my number one resource. E3 2000 is happening this month, May 2000, May 11th through 13th, as we discussed earlier. And so Nintendo Power is sharing a pre-show forecast, which, of course, they know things, but they do acknowledge there's an embargo. They really want characters to talk a lot in this episode, so they actually have interviews with Mario, Professor Oak, and also Banjo and Kazooie. Their pre-show forecast has this quote, with the Dolphins still about a year away, the emphasis at Nintendo remains on the N64, which I will say they did do an excellent job of keeping up that N64 hype. I also think that specifically releasing things like Banjo-Tooie, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Majora's Mask, having that release while Dolphin rumors were hot and obviously the development was really intense there was really, really solid of them to do, and I think it paid off because the N64 was still getting these great titles, and that's sick. There was a giant Pokemon feature, as you can expect, because Pokemon's the hotness, baby. Gold and Silver have their North American release in October 2000. Let's go. There's also going to be a Pokemon the Movie 2000, which, coincidentally enough, my parents just visited. They brought me a bunch of VHS tapes. One of them is Pokemon the Movie 2000. I will be watching it. I can't wait. And also they talk about the Pokemon Pikachu, which was I think called the Pocket Pikachu in Japan. The little portable dude, like a pedometer. I want one to use with Pokemon Blue, Yellow, all that good stuff. I want that. And so I looked on eBay. It's only about $50, but once again, I'm not going to buy it, but I want it. Nintendo Power makes the statement that it is the N64's finest year, which, as mentioned earlier, Banjo-Tooie, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Majora's Mask, Eternal Darkness, a new Bond game, Turok 3, sports games, Mega Man 64. Like, there are a lot of titles coming out, and as mentioned, they did the right thing with that. Plus, lots of Game Boy Color games coming out as well, because you need it. You need that handheld marketplace that Nintendo absolutely is dominating. Also, lots of Looney Tunes games. I wondered, like, were they still cool? Were they still able to ride the coattails of Space Jam at this time? Let me know. Because I feel like Looney Tunes, like, always is, like, attempting to come back in these waves. And I don't know how successful that was. I was never, like, a super Looney Tunes kid. So if you were, maybe still are, let me know, dog. In the Poke Center, they actually have like this really cool little article that like is obvious to me now as an adult, but reading through this for the first time and like thinking about it, it makes me have a really deep appreciation. It's about the numbers, statistics, all of those things that factor into Pokemon battles, and how the battling system works with the Pokemon games. It never occurred to me as a kid, like in my mind as a child, I was literally just like, I have Pikachu. I do Thundershock. If they are not rock, it will probably do pretty well. It'll probably do this much percentage of the bar of damage based on the type of Pokemon and the level. That kind of thing. And so, you know, I've been watching a lot of video game documentaries over the past 24 hours. And they talk about, like, I was watching one about, like, Final Fantasy XIV, the first iteration of that, like, 1.0. And like talking about how the battle mechanisms of a game are important. And I think that, you know, I have a deep appreciation now that I look back and I think about the numbers, the statistics, all the things that go into the logic behind a Pokemon battle. That's what keeps it interesting. Like most of the time, you know, if the teams are balanced, it's going to be an interesting fight because luck, statistics, chance do play into it as much as the stats and the hard work of training up your Pokemon. So I think that's great. Shout out to Pokemon for keeping the battles good. The questions are always so relevant to me, somehow. Someone is nervous to move Pokemon between their Game Boy game and the N64, which I also am nervous to also do that. Nintendo Power is like, hey, it's no big deal. And actually, here are some strategies, bro. Like, the example that they have is moving all of your Pokemon, all of them, into Stadium, starting a new game on the Game Boy. Then once you get your Pokedex, you put all those Pokemon back into it, and then going through and collecting different TMs to make the Pokemon super strong and excitable and awesome for Stadium, which like I would have never ever done. I was so attached to my Pokemon Yellow save file as a kid. You know, even after I beat that main storyline, I played that. I just had fun. I have always been a nostalgic person. I would like go back to I'd go back to my old stomping grounds, go to Palatown, go to like Viridian Forest and be like, you little level 3 Caterpie, you think you're gonna try to beat me, the champion of all of this game? So yeah, that save was very important to me. I would never just restart like that. They also have a really cool fun fact in there about Pokemon Stadium, which, you know, the details are still coming out because it was still a pretty new game at this moment. Person says, I earned a Doduo Game Boy. What is it? When you beat the Master Ball in the Poke or Prime Cup, you'll earn a Doduo Game Boy. With this handy item, you can play your Game Boy game at the Game Boy Tower in Pokemon Stadium at twice the normal speed, which is so sick because, like, emulators do that now, right? You can, like, play a game faster. The fact that they built that into this is so cool. I love that. So sick. They also take a moment to talk about the cards. They announce the Team Rocket set of boosters for the card game, which are gorgeous and wonderful. Dark Alakazam, Dark Weezing, Dark Gyarados. So sick. And then, of course, they do another Pokemon anime cartoon episode retelling in this. And then I was shocked to see this, but I am excited. We have the results from the Nintendo Power Awards. The 1999 winners are here. And one game really sweeps it away. I can't wait to tell you everything. I didn't cover all of them in my little review here, just the highlights. Over 20,000 ballots were submitted, which, like, let's go Nintendo Power gamers. Stoked for you. Best graphics go to Donkey Kong 64, with the runners-up being Resident Evil 2 and Pokemon Snap. Most innovative is Super Smash Bros. On the N64, with runners-up being Mario Party and Pokemon Snap. Which, like, I have a deep appreciation for the innovation of Super Smash Brothers. Did it really kick off this genre? Like, fighters weren't new. They've existed. But, like, bringing in this whole cast of characters and having them all battle it out, had that been a thing before? If it had, let me know. I need to know. I need to know. All right. Best sound and best music also went to Donkey Kong 64. Best minigame goes to Mario Party's Bumper Balls, which is a total classic. That's the one where all the characters are like on this little island and they're all on these balls and you smack into each other. Excellent stuff. Very, very classic. Deserved. Most underrated game, Harvest Moon 64, which I am getting soon. I'm really excited. I'm so excited. I'm excited to play the most underrated game as per the Nintendo Power voters, you know? Coolest weapon or move, Super Smash Brothers, Kirby's, Swallow, Attack! Woo, 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 woo. Oh, gorgeous. Deserved and gorgeous. Best Game Boy game, Pokemon Yellow. Best N64 game, DK64. Best overall game, DK64. What a sweep. Absolutely sweeping. So shout out to Donkey Kong 64, which I do own now. And I probably now need to play. They have a giant in-depth walkthrough with these gorgeous, gorgeous little maps of the Tomb Raider game that was released on Game Boy Color, which I do want. I want everything, though. I can't be stopped. I looked through the release rankings for this month. Excellent stuff. The top-rated game, not shockingly, is Perfect Dark. And the rating is a 9.6 out of 10. That's huge, dude. But they do talk about there's a lot of blood, there's a lot of violence, there's a lot of profanity. I had no idea. I did not see that coming. Especially because to me, GoldenEye was like so campy that I was not like Perfect Dark, but now I'm like Perfect Dark. The lowest rated game, I'm so sorry to tell you all, is Toobin, spelled Toobin, exclusive to the Game Boy Color. It got a 3.9. Apparently all you do is float down a river. In color, full color, you float down a river on a tube and you avoid obstacles. Midway's doozy of a snoozer. Oh my God, Nintendo Power. Love it. In the Pack Watch section, which is absolutely one of my favorite because it's a lot of like good announcements, but also like more in-depth news about Nintendo. There's more James Bond coming. The world is not enough, thank God. And then they also have a ton of screenshots from Majora's Mask, which looks super cool. I've never played it. I think I'm going to be picking it up soon. I probably will try it. I don't love Ocarina of Time. It's just like not my genre. But the storyline being kind of different and like the clock situation with like timing, that seems different too and very interesting. So I will at least try it, you know? Also, they announce a game that I thought was interesting and made me kind of do an interesting little dive. A Kirby game, Kirby's Tilt and Tumble, that uses an accelerometer. Did I say that word right? If I did, feel free to praise me. An accelerometer for Game Boy Color, and then you tilt it to control Kirby's motion. So I was like, yo, are accelerometers like common in games at this moment, or is this still like a thing that we're figuring out? It turns out it wasn't super huge. When I found like a Wikipedia article about the technology in general being used for gaming, they were like, the Nintendo Wii did everything. And I'm like, boo, there's stuff before that. I found an interesting tweet too that like is so obvious to me now. You know, if you have a Game Boy Advance SP, you know, it's a little clamshell boy, but you insert the games like upside down technically compared to upside up. You know what I mean. And so the accelerometer wouldn't work. And so I think essentially people were having to either solder and like reposition the accelerometer in the cartridge, or somebody found out that using a GameShark Pro for Game Boy Color and or Game Boy Pocket would allow the accelerometer to work as expected, which I love that. I love when people deep dive into those things because I just want to know. So it looks like next month for Nintendo Power, we have... Oh, why aren't you telling me? It's not telling me. But I do want one of those colorful N64s. I know I already own one, but they are advertising them so much, and they're all beautiful and perfect. So that's all it takes for me is just like, look at this gorgeous fire N64. You want it? I do. That wraps up the Nintendo Power review. So much interesting stuff there. We still have the deep dive to dig into this episode. In case you missed it, you were listening to Today in Gaming Yesterday with me, your host, Emma Pearl. Stay tuned. We are going to dive into the very surprisingly interesting and deep world of Mary-Kate and Ashely video games. So keep it locked. I will see you in just a moment. Let's take a quick break. See you in a sec. Hello, y'all. Welcome back to Today in Gaming Yesterday with me, your host, Emma Pearl. I gotta say, I'm so shocked at how excited I am to tell you all the interesting things that I learned about Mary-Kate and Ashely games. So if you don't know who Mary-Kate and Ashely are, Mary-Kate and Ashely Olsen, the Olsen twins. Mary-Kate Olsen, Ashely Olsen. Mary-Kate is actually one of the people whose name I use as inspiration when I would like people to call me Emma Pearl and not just Emma. I'll be like, hey, you don't call her Mary Olsen, you call her Mary-Kate. You don't call me Emma, you call me Emma Pearl. It works like 80% of the time. A little bit more about them. They were born in 1986, and they are actually fraternal twins. They are not identical twins. Mary-Kate and Ashely are not identical. First I'm hearing of this, I think, perhaps. So in 1987, at 6 months old, they were cast in their first role as actresses. They played Michelle Tanner on the sitcom that was on ABC called Full House. Maybe you've heard of it. Everywhere you look, is that the right one? There's a bump, somebody who's something. When you run or won't, something to carry you home. Everywhere you look, boom, ba-doom, ba-doom, boom. Full House. San Francisco. Okay, they started filming at 9 months old. Less than a year old, they have a major role on a sitcom. Good for them. They took turns playing the role, obviously, to comply with child labor laws. And they portrayed Michelle Tanner until the show ended in 1995. So pretty sweet little gig, right? Their first non-Full House roles were in a film called To Grandmother's House We Go in 1992, which led to more goofy videos, like, oh, we're cute little kids. Here's a song about little kids, for little kids, by little kids. We are twins. Just goofy stuff. I think they did one that was like, I think it was like Brother for Sale or something. Super goofy. They also have one that's like, I want pizza. Pizza. You should look it up. Look up the slowed down version on YouTube. It's very good. I digress. These like fun kid things eventually turned into like a tween and teen vibe. And it's also worth noting that in 1993, they actually formed their own production company. I'm guessing their parents probably helped them. In 1993, it's called Dual Star. Get it? Because they're twins. There's two of them. There's stars. There's two stars. The stars. Dual stars. And so to me, at this time period, Mary-Kate and Ashely movies and media and what they were doing with kind of their empire felt like cool girl stuff. Like, some movies came out in theaters, some were direct-to-video. Some examples I found. I can't tell you which is which in terms of direct-to-video versus theater. We have Passport to Paris, Our Lips Are Sealed, Winning London, So Little Time, Holiday in the Sun, Getting There, When in Rome, The Challenge, and New York Minute. I'm pretty sure New York Minute was released in theaters, and I think it got bad reviews, but now it's like a cult classic, so I do want to watch it. I probably will watch it this weekend. I will let you know via Twitter what my thoughts are. They also did some like guest appearances on all kinds of sitcoms over the late 90s, things like Seventh Heaven, Sister Sister. They also had an animated show, I'm pretty sure it was. I think it was animated. It was on like ABC morning situation or maybe like a Fox Family situation. They voiced themselves, I think, or characterizations of themselves. But, you know, they were doing pretty well. They had kind of cornered this like tween teen empire and all of the money that was coming from advertising to these folks, which like good for them. They were kind of the moment for a lot of teens in the 2000s because they had, you know, those movies and videos, things like that. They also had a clothing line. They had shoes, purses, hats, books, CDs, like all of the things that the tweens are into, fragrances, etc. And actually, this is interesting, and I thought it was like a cool fun fact. In 2004, they made news by signing a pledge to allow full maternity leave to all of the workers that sew their line of clothing in Bangladesh, which is actually really cool, so good for them. A lot of this activity, a lot of the excitement of them being twins and that being their brand cooled down once they turned 18. They didn't act as much, they didn't do the movies, they didn't do all this stuff. and they seem to actually kind of pivot into where their careers are now, which is in high fashion, in the fashion world, which good for them. There's a lot to unpack in terms of gaming that has been targeted at women and girls. I looked it up. I think the first Barbie video game, the Barbie dolls, existed as early as the 80s. I think it was 1984. It was like a Barbie game for PC. And, maybe I feel the effects of this so much, like being a woman, being a girl that grew up in this era. There were a lot of attempts made to like appeal to girls with video games. And like, there's also like a level of like internalized misogyny that comes from Mary-Kate and Ashely in general. Like, Mary-Kate's the cool, sporty one. Like, she hangs out with guys, and Ashley's a dork. She's so girly, like, bleh, like wild amounts of that. But then also like, some of the games at the time, that internalized misogyny turned itself for me into, I don't want to play these games that are for girls. Like, I like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, being like, hey, it's valid as a girl to like all of those games. You're not better than other people because you like games that are not targeted towards girls. We could really unpack that quite a bit. And I don't want to say that I'm the expert. A lot of this is just my own lived experience. But in the 90s, I think that gaming was continuing to just get more and more accessible. Like, prices were moving down, especially with things like the Game Boy Color. They were priced pretty competitively so that, more people could get into them. Games were showing up in more households. A lot more people were playing games. There was a greater need to expand and appeal to more and more people because they could. And so that included girls. That included women. In this sexism-dominated moment of like, well, a game for girls has to be about shopping and fashion, right? Mary-Kate and Ashely were very exciting poster people to have leading the helm of these games and leading all of this content. I looked it up. Actually, this line from Wikipedia gives a summary that I love. The Mary-Kate and Ashely games are a series of video games released between 1999 and 2002 that feature Mary-Kate and Ashely Olsen in various scenarios, such as trying to solve crimes, caring for horses, or freeing a shopping mall from a curse. Absolutely. It's true. I looked it up. Mary-Kate and Ashely partnered with the video game publisher Acclaim for their video game releases. Mid-1999 is when they forged this agreement. They announced that partnership between Acclaim and Dualstar, the production company. They were going to produce and ship 2 games that year, both for PC and for Game Boy Color. There were going to be 2 separate ones. They were geared towards, quote, growing girls, and were going to be released in time for the holiday season. Thank God. I found a very, very interesting thing about this game. So the 2 games that came out in 2000 were Mary-Kate and Ashely's Dance Party of the Century. Actually, I think these came out in 1999, excuse me, perhaps, brain. But, it's the turn of the century, blah, 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 Dance Party. And then there's one that we actually talked about in the February 2000 issue of Nintendo Power. This game was reviewed, called The New Adventures of Mary-Kate and Ashely. If you remember, we talked about this a few episodes ago because it was February 2000. It's a game. It's a little platformer puzzle moment. Like, Mary-Kate's the athletic one, so she can jump higher, and Ashely, blah, blah, flip switches, whatever. There's also a very strange feature of that game where you have a dog and you use that dog as a projectile to throw at enemies. We don't understand. It's okay. It came out in 1999. I learned in my research for this deep dive, this game, The New Adventures of Mary-Kate and Ashely, at its core was never actually meant for the Olsen twins. It is a reskin of a South Park game for Game Boy Color that was never actually released. I'm gonna let that sink in for just a moment. Read an article on CBR.com written by Jonathan Locchiato. It says, Acclaim, who, is partnered with Dualstar to make these video games for the Olsen twins, they were developing a game on the Game Boy Color based on South Park. This game, did exist. There was a screenshot in an issue of Nintendo Power. I was unable to find out which issue, but I kind of want to go back and look now. There's a screenshot. They mentioned this game in development, and then it was never heard from again. It was almost ready to ship, the South Park game. Just before it was released, the creators, Matt and Trey, they pulled the plug on the game. They knew at this point that the Game Boy Color was really geared, honestly, towards younger gamers, younger folks who probably would not vibe with the mature content of the show South Park. They didn't think that releasing it on that platform, releasing this game, was consistent with that mature audience. And so the game was not released. There are actually prototype cartridges of this game that was ready to go. They are owned by Matt and Trey, the creators, and that's the only people that own them. Even though I think a ROM was discovered online very recently. I didn't dig too much into that, though. If you think about it, Acclaim didn't want to waste what they had worked on here. So they reworked the game for a European audience, and it was called Maya the Bee and Her Friends, which I think was based on a book. And then they took that, reworked it again, and released it in North America to create The New Adventures of Mary Kate and Ashely. This reworked South Park game that is now about Mary Kate and Ashely throwing their dog at spiders just kicked off this entire incredible legacy of games that came out between 1999 and 2002 about Mary Kate and Ashely Olsen, the Olsen twins. The Dance Party of the Century game, as mentioned, was released in 1999, followed by another Game Boy Color game in 2000 called Get a Clue. There was a PlayStation game in 2000 that was released. It's a really good example in my mind of Dual Star really digging into the creation and look and the feel of the game, because when Acclaim and Dual Star announced that they were doing this, they're like, we're really gonna Dual Star, Mary Kate and Ashely, the Olsen twins, we're going to dig in, make this game what we want, really get in on the design. I think they didn't necessarily do that for the first one, the reskinned one, but this one that came out on PlayStation in 2000 is probably actually a really good example of that. I found an article on Racked.com by Bettina McElintal. Doing my best there. It's titled, "Remember that video game where the Olsen twins were trapped in a mall? It predicted everything you like now." Mostly about fashion. So in this game called Mystery Mall, Mary Kate and Ashely, there's Mystery Mall. They're trapped in a mall. It happens. They need to find gems that are missing from a necklace in order to escape, and they complete mini games to get said gems. This game, for me, as I said, feels like, hey, we're the Olsen twins and we have a brand to uphold, so dig into it. In the article from Racks.com, they actually were able to speak to Amy Williams, who is a game dev who did set and character design for the game Mystery Mall, and they were quoted as saying, "The people at Dual Star put an emphasis on fashion. So for us gamers, there was a lot to learn." They recalled that marked up magazine clippings were sent by the team at the Twins production company to the video game company to be like, fashion, look at it. And the article states further, for the Olsens, who were 14 at the time of Mystery Mall's release, growing up meant incorporating fashion, shopping, and dating more and more into their brand. Things that were no doubt part of their actual teen lives, but also sold the teenage fantasy to tween fans, which, when we talked about Acclaim's reasoning for this Dual Star partnership, it was to appeal to, quote, growing girls. So, I see it there. They're trying to really dig in. As I mentioned, a lot of the fashion of this game, the early 2000s stuff, it's what people are into now. It's giving me a lot of Gen Z TikTok fashion, which I, of course, am into. I love a good choker moment. I think it's nice. In terms of more games they released a pocket planer for Game Boy Color, which literally I see at least 2 or 3 copies of every time I go to my favorite location of Game Over Video Games in Austin, Texas. I've always wanted to buy it and be like, do you think I could use this? And I learned more about it. It has a lot of features. It has a calendar, a stopwatch, phone book, and it has mini games where you can unlock pictures of Mary Kate and Ashely, which I put in parentheses, valuable. You can actually use a Game Boy printer with this game to print off said pictures of Mary Kate and Ashely. I own a Game Boy printer now. I'm really thinking about this. I might buy this game. Also, there is a crush tester in this game. In this pocket planer, you can go to the crush tester. You can point your Game Boy at your crush, and it will tell you if the feelings are reciprocated between you and your crush, which I think is kind of useful. Like, GG's, Mary Kate and Ashely. There's also Gmail, which probably is not Google's email platform. It's probably Mail for Girls, is what Wikipedia told me. And you can use the infrared port on your Game Boy Color with another Game Boy Color that also has the game in an infrared port, and you can send Gmail to each other. I need at least one friend that is as into this as I am, who will both send Gmail back and forth with me with the Mary-Kate and Ashely Pocket Planner, and then also play the Half-Life 1 co-op on PS2. This is what I need. Friends, please apply. tiguypod@gmail.com. I need friends for this. They released more and more games. Winner's Circle on PlayStation and Game Boy Color in 2001. I think it's about horses. And then Crush Course was another game that came out in 2001 for PlayStation, PC, and Game Boy Color. This game's theme is about finding out which boy in the school has a crush on you based on finding pieces of a love letter that was stuck to your locker, Mary-Kate's locker, that was ripped apart by a rival. And I probably do want to play this game. It's also Mary-Kate and Ashely's Girls' Night Out, which was the first of their games to be released on the Game Boy Advance, and that came out in 2002. You go to clubs, you dance, you design your outfits. Live it up, ladies. Live it up. Their final big push into this gaming realm was in 2002 when they turned 16, the Sweet 16 License to Drive set of games released on Game Boy Color, GameCube, and PS2, which released on Game Boy Advance, because I was like, I own this on Game Boy Advance. Yes, I own it on Game Boy Advance, and the Game Boy Advance version is kind of like a stripped down version of, the other versions that are on the consoles as opposed to like handhelds. It's the way I categorize it in my mind as Crazy Taxi minus the violence. You're running errands for your parents. Now that you're 16, you have a car, you gotta run some errands, bro. So get with it, go to the marked areas on the map, complete the errands. I think it's fun. So what happened and why did these games stop? Seems like Acclaim kind of gave up a little bit. Who knows why? Because despite these games getting pretty negative reviews from quote real gamers, people were buying them. The games were being sold. People wanted to pick this up. There was an entirely untapped audience that was interested in these games. So Acclaim, in that giving up, it led to Dual Star and their partnership being terminated in September of 2003. As part of that termination deal, Acclaim was to pay Dual Star over $177,000, for royalties and all those payments that are due. Final payment was due April 1st, 2004. Acclaim actually missed that payment, so Dual Star sued them for the money that they're owed, as well as interest, legal fees. That totaled over $660,000. And there's a spicy quote from Dual Star's lawyer that was sent to Acclaim chairman Greg Fishback in April 2004. It goes as follows. The abandonment of the Mary-Kate and Ashely brand video game franchise by Acclaim is the single dark spot on the otherwise unblemished success story of the Mary-Kate and Ashely brand across myriad media and territories. Wow. So, there's drama there. There's drama between Acclaim and Mary-Kate and Ashely. There was more to release. There was more to say. There were more games to be made. What happened? I don't know. I can't figure out how this lawsuit ended up. I searched mildly hard. If you can search better than me, if you know what happened when Dual Star sued Acclaim, please let me know. I'm dying to know. Because we need closure. We need closure for these Mary-Kate and Ashely games. We need closure for the games that provided us with using dogs as projectiles. Don't do that, by the way. Having a crush meter so you can determine how much your crush likes you and sending Gmail. I need to know. I need that closure. And that is a deep dive for you into the Mary-Kate and Ashely video games of the early 2000s. I hope you learned something. I did. I cannot believe that they just reworked a South Park game to be a Mary-Kate and Ashely game. Acclaim. Very interesting. But I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. I know I enjoyed putting it together for you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thanks again to my wonderful resources I used this week. GameFAQs, TCRF.net, Bloomberg News, Retro Mags, RetroCDN.net, Wikipedia, of course, and CBR.com, as well as Ranked.com. Please rate, review, subscribe, all the good things for the podcast. I will see you next week with June 2000. We are almost halfway through this wild year of gaming. We're getting ever closer to the PS2. It is all happening. I hope that you are as excited as I am to dig into this. I think it's going to be so much fun. And we're going to get to hear about what happened at E3, maybe, hopefully. Publishing timelines are weird. But I hope you all have a wonderful, safe rest of your day. Remember to work hard, be nice, and have fun. And I will see you next time. Again, you're listening to Today in Gaming Yesterday with your host, Emma Pearl. And I'll catch you next time.